Now, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Chuck is one of the most annoying, overly melodramatic, and sometimes outright cringeworthy beings in the supernatural universe. In fact, it's not even just the supernatural universe. The Udkin and virtually every other universe literally makes fun of this guy behind his back, and sometimes just straight to his face. He is literally the butt of every joke. It is kind of sad. Moving on. Now, we've actually explored many hypotheses when it comes to this guy, from his secret dread to why he chose Gadriel to guard the Garden of Eden. But we've never actually looked at him. Yes, there were mentions about his theorized hatred of the empty and his desire to escape its clutches, but there's still one thing we don't know. Something so fundamental has been hidden in plain sight, and as far as I'm aware, no one's really asked the question. We're talking about his obsession with Sam and Dean killing each other. More importantly, why he needs it from the past until he didn't. We've often spoken about Chuck's need for control, how authorship was his expression of power, a way to create, either to escape loneliness, the empty, or because the world had to be born, as he constantly keeps saying. But in the 14th year of Supernatural, we saw a dramatic shift. Suddenly, Chuck turned towards villainy, revealing the darkness beneath the light. We saw the obsession. But what if I told you that it was never about Sam and Dean? What if I told you that it was about himself, Amara, and the rules that bound them together? What if Sam and Dean were nothing more than the manifested desire of Chuck wanting to kill Amara to truly become almighty? I know,
a bold claim.
one that many would say is not really possible. Why would Chuck's desire to see Sam and Dean kill each other be in any way an indication of his desire to destroy Amara? Well, let's talk about mandatory existence. What is it? It is one of the conceptual laws of the natural order, one that governs the balance of creation itself. For the universe to remain stable, both light and dark must live or die together. If one perishes, the other and everything else ceases to exist. But do not misunderstand. This wasn't a rule imposed on them by the natural order itself, or some fluke of design. It was the natural consequence of what Chuck and Amara actually are. After all, they were originally one being, what we call the Unity, a primordial entity composed of both light and dark. So what does that have to do with Chuck wanting Amara dead? Well, quite simply, Amara is his one true equal, greater in raw power, though lacking tactical finesse. It's how he managed to steal her in the Mark of Cain eons ago, how he rallied Lucifer, heaven, demons, and witches, practically everything, just in an attempt to imprison her the second time, and eventually, how he managed to do this. This was the key moment. The moment Chuck's obsession ended. Because he finally achieved what he wanted. He knew that killing Amara would destroy everything. They both needed to exist for creation to persist. Stealing her away was the only method he had in order to create. But that was only a temporary solution. So when Sam and Dean bared their fangs at him, like freaking rabid dogs, Chuck turned to the one entity who could threaten him. One who just happened to have a special connection to the brothers. His sister Amara.
Oh, there it is. Your shoulder. Something happened. You're not complete. You're not at full strength. And you're afraid.
Neutral or not, she was still a threat to him. It didn't matter if they had reconciled, that they traveled the universe together, that hell, they were even on good terms, to be entirely honest. Chuck knew that she could be manipulated. He had done it before. Hell, he did it twice.
Hello, brother. You cheated. Again.
And no one couldn't be sure whether her connection with Dean had truly faded or not. Maybe Dean could convince her to steal Chuck away, just like she had been sealed away once. So he approached her. But that was not brotherly love, it was out of fear, wrapped in sentiment. The plea of a wounded little sibling trying to get his big sister to beat up the bullies. I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with Sam and Dean killing each other again and again in other universes? Well, why not take it at face value? Because Supernatural has nuances that often get ignored in favor of action, drama, brotherly loyalty. But here's the unsettling question that has to be answered. What did Chuck get out of it? Seriously, ask yourself that question. What did he gain from orchestrating their death over and over and over again? Control? He had that. Sadistic pleasure? Maybe. But remember, he actually does love Sam and Dean of the original universe. He said they were his favorite show and he enjoyed watching them. And yes, while he does have a sadistic streak, he could have easily just annihilated them when they started snapping at him, so no. Perhaps it was because he lacked the soul. No, that's a distinction without a difference. What Chuck truly got out of it was a little thing called catharsis. He was living through them vicariously. They were brothers who would die for each other, risk hell, face down gods. Their bond was profound, a warm echo of mandatory existence of what Chuck and Amara shared. But unlike his own situation, 17's story could end in death, with one being victorious over the other. And that, to Chuck, would have been freedom, something he would wish to have. But let's be entirely honest, he wasn't always like this. At least not at the beginning. No, this only developed once Amara was back, no longer sealed, no longer out of sight, out of mind. We mistook Chuck's villainy for a desperate need for control, but what if we were wrong? What if it was a tantrum? All the other Sams and Deans across the multiverse played their roles. They gave Chuck what he needed, but our Sam and Dean rejected it. That wasn't just refusal, it was denial of catharsis, denial of what had become his drug, essentially. And when they broke that cycle, Chuck spiraled. Think of it as the multiverse's biggest crash out, second only to when the Shadow straight up murdered Billy. Imagine a child who could have been given candy anytime, no rule, no limit, until one day the parents said, no more, not until you eat your broccoli. Well, when you literally deal with a spoiled child like that, what are they gonna do? They're gonna get angry, they're gonna make a massive mess, and they're going to scream, whine, and destroy things if they have the ability to do so. And that's exactly what happened with Chuck when you look at it. But then that arises another question. What about Jack? Didn't Chuck come back because Jack was becoming a god-level threat?
Look, the point is, the kid did all that with 2 words. What's next? He sneezes and whoops, there goes India? I don't know, maybe. But this is bad. Like, me-level bad.
Well, I mean, yes, but let's look deeper. Chuck has always desired control. Jack, in time, could have usurped them, but that threat was far, far in the future. We're talking like billions of years here. That's not what pushed Chuck over the edge. Remember what Chuck said when Sam saw those other universes.
You're not gonna dust us.
Oh, yeah? Why not?
Because you're holding out. For your big finish. Yeah, we know about your galaxy-brained idea. How you think this story is gonna go. Sam got a little look into your draft folder.
Sam's visions, they weren't drafts. They were memories. My memories. Other Sams and other Deans. In other worlds. But guess what? Just like you, they didn't think they'd do it either. But they did.
Memories, past events, replays in the mind. But here's the thing most people overlook. After Sam shot him with the Equalizer, Chuck was confined to Earth. He couldn't leave the universe. So, when did these memories happen? Anyone? Before Moria, before Chuck returned to Earth, which means he was already killing off Sams and Deans in the hundreds, maybe thousands of times. It's the only way those memories could exist. Jack may have pulled him back, but Chuck had been replaying the fantasy long before that. He was indulging in his drug, in his desire that he could never fulfill without his own death, and he couldn't let go until the obsession finally stopped. But why did it stop? Frankly enough, it's because he got what he wanted. If Chuck's obsession was always rooted in the need to destroy or seal away Amara, then the moment he tricked her into being absorbed, that was the end. Look at how it happened. Chuck offered her peace, balance, a reprieve from suffering and betrayal. And once again, she trusted him. That outstretched hand mirrored her own from the 11th year when they reconciled. And that gesture became her downfall. Watch her face. She expected to leave with him, to create something new, together. Well, what she got was betrayal. You can see it, the tears in her eyes, her essence being absorbed, her autonomy gone, her agency erased, her sense of self obliterated. In that moment, the obsession vanished and all that remained, pain and vengeance. Because Chuck is still petty. He didn't just want Amara gone, he wanted Sam and Dean to pay, despite the fact that he had more than enough power to just wipe them from existence. The easiest way he could have gotten rid of them, but he couldn't because he wanted them to suffer for challenging him. But the worst part is, out of this entire situation, is that even though Chuck lost his powers, he still won. He won the big game because Amara remains trapped within Jack. No longer her own being, no longer a person, just power. The power of darkness. That's it. Chuck's darkest secret was hinted at from the moment he returned in the 11th year, when he told Metatron that the story that he was writing was his, not Amara's, even though he knew the truth. Jealousy made peace impossible, because how could a being like Chuck ever truly accept a universe when he didn't control everything? Now when the other half of his being was out there, living her own life, still a threat, but could be manipulated to make him stronger via unity, to become one entity again. And despite everything, this is his lasting victory, because Amara is gone and she doesn't need to be, but she is. And this was his darkest secret. He won, and that was the end of it all.